Or like Macho Man Randy Savage says, the cream always rises to the top.
Yes, exactly.
Right here.
Start with Jonathon Taylor, Johnny. I think that's where we got to start here. He's definitely the highest ADP of all the second-year guys. We were seeing him go as number 4, number 5 off the board in mock drafts so far this early offseason. And why not? Finishes the RB4 in standard and the RB6 in PPR. We saw this kind of roller coaster year for Taylor, okay? Week 10 was one of his worst games at Tennessee. He had only 9 touches for 37 yards. Then he had the Green Bay game in week 11, gets 26 touches. Then he gets COVID, or at least is on the COVID list, misses week 12 versus Tennessee, and then absolutely goes nuclear, Johnny, over the final 5 weeks. 21 touches was his average. He averaged 144.6 all-purpose yards, scored 8 touchdowns in that stretch. After returning from COVID and that list that he was on, no other running back scored more points than Jonathon Taylor from weeks 13 through 17. So we talked about him averaging, Johnny, as the number 2, 16.9 points per game. That's heavily weighted by the 26 PPR fantasy points per game that he averaged in weeks 13 through 17. So he really had a combination of getting more touches. And then I think what you're going to add is that he didn't face a lot of tough competition either.
Yeah, that's my major complaint right now is that, yeah, I understand how he finished the end of the season, Travis, and that's all good and dandy. And trust me, like I definitely think that, Jonathon Taylor is going to be one of these better running backs come these next few years. But let's just put into perspective and just cool down a little bit on some of these, second year running backs coming in here. But let's actually dive into what Jonathon Taylor did. He did explode for sure, but in reality, he only faced 2 top 10 rushing defenses all season. And in particular, he had a very nice schedule at the end of the year, which you talked about how he monsterly broke off. He had Houston and Jacksonville, the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, 3 of the last 5 games. And then if you even take week 14, he played the Las Vegas Raiders and they were ranked 24th. So they were a bottom 10 in the rushing defense, Travis. And then on top of that, let's just look at what else he's got to face. When you took the Baltimore game and the Cleveland game, they were weeks 5 and weeks 9. Now, it's hard to get a full picture of what he could possibly do because in those 2 games, when he did face a difficult defense, he did get 55% snap share in week 5 against Cleveland, but it was 12 carries for 57 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown, he ended up getting 4 fantasy points that week. Against Baltimore in week 9, however, different story, 8.4 fantasy points. He only did see 31% snap share, 6 carries for 27 yards and a touchdown. So the touchdown saved him in both games. Now, if you look at the schedule coming up this year, Travis, we don't know the dates, of course, because that stuff hasn't been released yet, but we do know the teams, right? And there are 3 teams that he'll face that were in 8 of last year in run defense. That's Tampa Bay, LA Rams, and San Francisco 49ers. I would have a high guarantee that those 3 have a good potential to be top 10 again this next year. And so he's got three difficult matchups there. You look at Carson Wentz under Frank Reich. When he did play under him, he only threw to the running back 13% of the time. So that, we talk about the major upside of Jonathon Taylor if he can get that rushing or that receiving ability, but Carson Wentz doesn't tend to usually throw to the running back position. Now, I will say, since Reich has come over to Indianapolis, they have averaged about 20% target market share to the running back. So that is a little bit of a good sign. But then you're also talking about Marlon Mack coming in. I think it's an underrated signing. I think people are writing him off a lot because of the Achilles injury. I think, technology and things how it is today, Travis, I think Marlon Mack can come back.
Live to be 100 years old.
Dude.
Is that what you're getting
dude,
at?
I read a story just last week where they were putting pig's heart and the humans, dude.
Yeah.
It didn't work. They died, but
I want to bring up to your point here. Aowen Kelly over here on YouTube says, love Taylor. Any concerns he won't be getting the touches until later this year, later in the year. I think the reason he got a lot of the work last year was a couple things. He was shaking off issues that he was having with vision. issues that he was having as a rookie coming into this game. This game gets tougher at that level. We obviously know that. We know that this line, he was not hitting his blocks in time, and we knew that he took time. I mean, we had the COVID offseason, right? So we didn't have the learning experience, the reps that he actually needed to get in there. We do know that he only dropped one pass. Okay. And the big question for Jonathon Taylor coming into last year was, could he catch? We didn't see it a lot when he played in college. Well, he could catch last year. He proved that. And Johnny has concerns about if the target market share will be there for running backs under Reich. I have to think that it will happen there. It happened towards the end of last year with Phillip Rivers. Now we know that's quarterback based, of course, but Frank Reich is also a guy that will get that involved in the offense. And let's not act like the Indianapolis squad is so stacked with other weapons that they won't need to throw to the running back. I think that they have weapons that are unproven. They've got guys, outside of T.Y. Hilton that are guys that need development. And yes, they could develop under Wentz, but I think Wentz is going to try and be smart, and so is Frank Reich, to get Wentz back into this. Because remember, Wentz's confidence is also shaken as well, coming from Philly and being out of there. Now, I think that you are right in the Mack signing, that it is a little bit more underrated than people think. If he comes back healthy, Mack is going to be a guy that's a better version of Jordan Wilkins, who was getting splitting work with Jonathon Taylor to start last year. Now, what's going to be the biggest caveat for all of this that we're talking about concern? The fact that Jonathon Taylor is one of the better running back prospects we've seen come out of college in the last few years. And so if he comes in and he just does what he's supposed to do and dominates, they're going to have no choice but to continue to feed him the rock. So I would say that, yes, there's an opportunity where his upside gets capped here, but talent always rises to the surface. So I would think that in my case, I think that Jonathon Taylor will rise to the top here.
Or like Macho Man Randy Savage says, the cream always rises to the top.
Yes, exactly. What a great rendition of the late great Macho Man.
Right here.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click subscribe. And if you want to watch more fantasy football content, check out one of these videos.